Hello and welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. Today we are on the part 2 where we discuss the historic decision of the Supreme Court of India, and namely Justice Suryakant, Justice Ujjwal Bhoyan and Justice Dipankar Datta, where they've called for reservation in the Delhi High Court Bar Association. Indeed, a glass ceiling has been broken, but it did not come from the bar. It required the bench to make that final push through, and that's why courts are important. They show us the way, and they have indeed shown us the way this time, and that's why we are doing this series. What will be the impact of this decision of the Supreme Court? How will it impact what facilities and what kind of decisions the Delhi High Court Bar Association will take for the welfare of lawyers? How will it impact women in this profession? All of this and more we'll discuss. I have a very eminent panel with me. Let me introduce to you Senior Advocate Priya Hengorani. We recently know that also she had contested for the Supreme Court Bar Association polls, and she's been through that process. We're very happy to have her on the show. We have Sunita Ojha, advocate on record in the Supreme Court of India. She was part of this case, and of course, she will be able to talk about this in detail. We have Advocate Ruchi Agnihotri. We also have Advocate Ekta Sikri joining us, who practices at the Delhi High Court and Supreme Court. Alia Waziri, an arguing counsel at the Delhi High Court, joins us. Good to see all of you. And at the outset, let me start with somebody who's been through this grind. Senior Advocate Priya Hengorani feels very strongly on the subject. I remember her having called me once and we had a discussion on this subject. I think this was a little before she had actually contested or thought of contesting. What do you feel upon seeing the order of this Supreme Court bench, Justice Suryakant, Ujjwal Bhoyan and Justice Dipankar Datta?
Thank you, Tarun, for having me. And yes, of course, as you mentioned, I have very strong views also because I have been now for the last 3 decades in the bar and been very actively involved in the bar elections since I had enrolled. I had the opportunity, as you know, of being the first woman secretary of Supreme Court Bar in 50 years. In 1990, I became the secretary. And that barrier, glass ceiling, had never been broken. Despite best efforts by so many of our stalwarts at the Supreme Court. And then, of course, before me, of course, we had Justice Sunanda Bhandari, who had become the first woman vice president of the Supreme Court, and then she was elevated to the High Court. Well, this order I'm not surprised with this order because we just went through a similar order when our Supreme Court Bar Association elections were about to take place, and there was an application moved, and for temporary or exam for one purpose, they said that we will reserve the post of treasurer this year on trial basis for the Supreme Court, and that was done. And we had 5 women or 5 or 6 women lawyers who contested for that post of treasurer. And we have a lady who's the treasurer of the Supreme Court Bar Association this year. Apart from that, we had many women who contested in the member executive committee elections, and they also won. What I feel is it's very good that the courts have stepped in to kind of take this forward. But I'm also sad that it should have actually been taken place at the association level. The bar associations should voluntarily think about these things. We have such stalwarts at the bar, whether it is the Delhi High Court or at the Supreme Court, or even for the Bar Council. Nobody talks about the Bar Council of India or the Bar Council, State Bar Council, where, if you look around, we've never had a president of the Bar Council of India. We've very rarely in Delhi, as far as I remember, Delhi Bar Council had just 2 women, and for the last few years, there's not been a single woman. So it's important for us to introspect and not always look to courts to, give hand-down decisions. Of course, it's a welcome decision. I think women across all courts are very happy about it. But I think it's important for us to introspect at the bar and break this mold of the old boys club and, come forward and be magnanimous or be participatory in this process and say that, yes, we should all have maximum represent good people who represent the bar, who have the time to represent the bar.
You know what? I will take this discussion in a different perspective because of what you said. 50 years ago, India had a woman prime minister, a very strong one at that, Indira Gandhi. very in recent times, we had strong women chief ministers. For example, Jayalalitha. I have seen many photos of men prostrating as she's sitting on a chair. So I think boys, in a sense, looking up to or following orders is not a problem as far as society is concerned, because when we saw chief ministers, we could see how grown-up politicians and men behaved around Jayalalitha. They were fawning over her and all of that. So I don't think that is a societal issue. Third, when we saw strong women CEOs, Indira Nooyi was one of the CEOs. There are many Indian CEOs who are women bankers, eminent bankers are women in leadership positions. In the past 10, 15 years, we saw a lot of general counsels who are women and doing very well. And in the later phase now, a lot of law firm partners and senior partners are women. It's only the Bar Association where I think this citadel hadn't been, in a sense, broken. So Sunita Hoja, who's part of the case, is an hour at the Supreme Court. She'll tell me what is so different about the Bar Associations that it has taken so long, and why was it necessary to file a case, and why was it necessary for a Supreme Court to give direction when lawyers could have taken the decisions at the bar themselves.
Thank you, Tarun, for having me over this show. I want to tell you just two things before the order was passed. Last year, women completed 100 years of having the right to practice. And I personally have had talks with almost many senior advocates, both in Supreme Court, who are considered leaders in Supreme Court as well as in the High Court. In fact, my only thing was that, look, this is the 100th year and we should have a woman president. If Priya Hingorani madam would remember, I had asked her also, and she said, I'm contesting next year, which is 2024. I got two kinds of feedbacks. One, why should there be a reservation? Women should fight on their own and come. Okay, fair enough. The other was, which I don't want to name and quote, but I have notes. I can tell you exactly who said what. I said, but tell me which successful woman lawyer is willing to give this kind of time? Where are women who are ready to contest? Now, that conversation took me back to women who are practitioners. We have, of course, Priya Hingorani madam, who has been active, like from the day I have come, I've joined bar, I have seen her holding post, fighting elections. But for the Delhi High Court Bar Association, I started talking to many senior women lawyers. Everybody was like, oh, if somebody stands, we will support. But no. And, you know, what actually, so my conclusion was, there are women who may be willing, not about the fighting part, but they're willing to discharge the work. They have, you know, as a lawyer, they are discharging, and like you said, as a partner, they are doing excellent job. They are in judiciary. So what happens about the Bar Association? You know, what was the point, which I figure, that is my understanding, that fighting against a male colleague, that is the big challenge, because the whole gamut of fight, the way the bar associations fight has the elections, have campaign, election funding, election canvassing, all that has emerged. That is, women felt that, look, we don't have a equal sort of say. That was my understanding. Now, and then Supreme Court order happened last year, 2024. It was fabulous. 10 women who actually contested for treasurer. Out of 22, 8 women are today. They are the members of Supreme Court Bar Association. So when the order came in Supreme Court 2024, we thought High Court would be a cakewalk. Now Supreme Court has given an order. It's so clear. It says it's a pilot project. Delhi is just across the road. Why would, initially we thought we'll file an application IA in Supreme Court, but then that was, why go to Supreme Court? Let's go to High Court. High Court is known as one of the most progressive courts, and we will get the order. July, a petition was filed, a representation was sent. First day, everybody, in fact, we thought the bench is with us and we will get it. It's just a matter of time. Second hearing, the association and all people came, and that's when we started feeling that it is not an easy cake. It is not going to be easy, because there was so much of opposition, which actually was so surprising that because after the Supreme Court order, it shouldn't have been so difficult, because Supreme Court has showed the way. And finally, when they came back and they said, look, we are not agreeable to this, Now, even the High Court, we would have liked the High Court to sort of like what the Supreme Court did. The same thing could have been done in the High Court. But in the High Court, when our acting Chief Justice then said that let them file their reply, etc., we will see. Now, I was appearing for an intervener. My prayer was only limited to the fact that at least this year, because the petitions were filed PIL seeking raising larger issues of women representation as far as the Bar Association, Bar Council, all that is concerned. So I said at least for this year, because Delhi High Court election happens after 2 years. So if you push the issue, it's gone for next 2 years. But nothing. Thankfully, so overnight we filed an SLP. We mentioned it before the chief, and the matter got listed before bench. Justice Suryakant, they had already passed that order, sitting with Justice Vishwanath in the earlier round for Supreme Court, and it's so the important, interesting point was because the court thought that vice president will give the post of vice president. Now all people who were like a part of petitioners, etc., the whole thing was why vice president. Then we took out the rule for Delhi High Court Bar Association. It basically lists 3 people. So president who chairs the meeting, GBM, secretary who controls all library, books, furniture, and the treasurer who controls the money. Rest are all there, but so we said give one of these, and then Justice Suryakant was dictating order on the vice president, and he said treasurer, and then also leaving the scope open for the Bar Association. They said if you want to give more, then you give more. So now you see, so the point is, I'll just complete this, because now I'll take you back to the earlier conversation when this whole thing was women should fight and take, and this decision should come from the bar itself. We don't want the courts to interfere. That is largely the entire, the opinion, which I agree, but has it ever happened? Has it ever happened? You have to, women are ready to enter the association politics or a public life. I would call it not even politics, public life, but create a level playing field. That will not happen. So a woman fighting against a woman has a better chance. At least there's a level playing field. We don't have. So that is what the reservation will do, and more women will come. They ड्रीम सपनों की कमी नहीं है यहाँ, बस आप एवेन्यूज दीजिए, हम तोड़ते रहेंगे. So thank you.
Very well said. That was Advocate Sunita Oja, AOR at Supreme Court. She is part of this case. Let me request Ekta Sikri, Advocate Ekta Sikri, to make in a comment on this case.
Yes, I'll pick up from where Madam Priya Hingorani left, and she said it's time to introspect and not look at the court, but I will look at it differently. I'll say time is right, and we have a great bench. And this is the right step in the right direction. There was initially a question holding me back that do we really as women need reservation? But if I look at it differently, it's only a better gender balance. I will really not call it reservation. I would rather frame it as a better gender balance, and that I feel is the need of the hour. And this question really came back to me that as women, are we any less so that we need reservation? And I started looking at some of the statistics, and I feel that outcome of reservation should become the reason for reservation. Because interestingly, if you see, sadly, India is only at, we started at 5% reservation in the parliament, and now it's become only 15%. Hopefully with the 2023 bill becoming an act, we should see a better representation. I was interestingly looking at Rwanda. It's the country with the highest women representatives in their lawmaking body, and it started with a 30% reservation, and it took about 10 years for them to completely switch to a 65% in their lawmaking body. So I feel that whether it's the parliament, whether it was the panchayats initially, whether interestingly even companies to have one women director, these are all steps in the right direction. We couldn't have a better time. The SCBA was permitted last year. It's the turn of the High Court, and I think we couldn't have a better bench. Justice Suryakant is known for his verdicts on women rights. He's always been, I would use the word torchbearer for women rights issues, whether it's the seminal decision that he gave on abortion rights for women, or other judgments that he's delivered upholding women rights. So I feel the time is right, and I feel we need a better gender balance, even in
Point by better gender balance is what says Ruchi Agnihotri, who rose on to become a partner in one of India's largest law firms. She will speak to us. She's seen on the other side. Now, the law firms front, women did very well, I think, from the late 90s onwards. So many women partners at top levels in law firms, and some law firms are being run by women, some of the big ones. On this side, change has been slow. We'll go to Advocate Ruchi Agnihotri for her intervention.
Thank you for having me on the show, firstly, Tarun. You're right. I come from an ecosystem where women had equal representation top down, right? And we had a Zia Modi, we had a Pallavi Shroff, and we had a Vandana Shroff, and all sorts of people who were not only running firms but taking decisions. And Amarchand Mangaldas, and now Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas, actually has 50% or even more, maybe, from the partnership to the, and it's not even something that has been sort of consciously done. It's just normal, because I think it's important. I've taken a cue from what Priya ma'am said, and what Sunita said, and what Ekta said. It's important to enable. It's important, yes, but more than enablement, mindsets have to change. My personal, like, I actually picked up the phone today and asked somebody who's been fighting elections and happens to be a lady as well, and I said, how do you see this order? Because I'm not somebody who's standing for elections. I'm a woman, but I'm not standing for elections, so I have to understand from the perspective of somebody. And she was like exactly what Sunita was saying, that no, we don't want this. We are equal, and so on and so forth. So there is it's a mindset issue, according to me. Firstly, we have to enable ourselves as women. Yes, we may need that enablement, but we have to enable ourselves as women, and we have to be trusting ourselves that we can compete on very equal footing. And then, yes, the enablement does come into play, because if the men are kept out of the mix, and you are allowed to fight with just women, you may just be more comfortable because you have the ability to deliver, but you don't probably have the ability to take on that kind of fight at a dirty level. When we say men, you're not pitted against a man, and therefore there is that comfort level, it means a different myriad things, which we don't want to say that, it's different, because women don't feel equipped to fight that battle on that level, at whatever level it is supposed to be fought, right? And yes, reservation will work. I feel. Only thing is the women's reservation bill, what Nari Shakti Adhiniyam, I think the 106th amendment happened in 2023 September, and nobody realizes there's a wonderful catch there. First, the census has to take place. There's a delimitation exercise that has to take place, and we've had one general election where it has simply not played out. So we are definitely 5 years away from it, and you never know how many more years away we are from it, because so there are it's there. It's wonderful to make those announcements, but on ground things change only if there is that will and that intent to do it.
And one big comment from Ruchi, that do you think that in the sense the Supreme Court push was necessary in the context of Delhi High Court Bar Association?
I think it's necessary. I don't know much about the Supreme Court Bar Association, because that's not the court that I have practiced a lot in. I have practiced a lot in the Delhi High Court, and I know it's very misogynistic at its core. But I also believe that there is a lot of misogyny in the women. Let's not just blame the men. The mindsets of a lot of women lawyers are extremely misogynistic as well. And so therefore, I come back to the same point. Enablement is in very necessary, very, very necessary. Women are not an oppressed class in the Delhi High Court, certainly not. In fact, I was shocked because recently, of late, I've been going a lot to the Bombay High Court and doing matters. And I was shocked because I'm used to women being very, very much at the forefront of court matters, of, briefing, arguing. And Bombay is completely a gentleman's club. The Bombay High Court, the High Court of Bombay is a complete gentleman's club. I mean, women are just like very lower down in the food chain. So who's responsible for that? this is not about a bar association. This is about actually arguing a matter and actually taking the lead in a matter. I have been to the Bombay High Court almost for the majority of this year for different matters, and I have not seen a women's senior counsel or a woman counsel arguing over there. And that is also a cause for concern. So I think enablement is very important, Tarun. But unless there is a mindset change and unless women actually feel that they don't need to stoop down to that level, I assume when we say level playing field, we are saying that we don't want the women to have to do things that are perceived as necessary in an electioneering sort of a setup, right? And it's easy. You can do that, even if you are fighting against a man, and if you do not do that, I always feel that if you actually give the electorate a chance to, you give them an option, an alternative, which is a different alternative, they will choose it. They will choose it. Having said that, I think it was an important order. It's a good order, and it will give a lot more people confidence. So nothing to take away from the struggle that has gone behind this order and to get this order and the value of this order as well. But I think some more work will be needed before it can be effectuated.
Thank you, Ruchi, for that free and frank opinion on this issue. Now, Alia Waziri, who practices at the Delhi High Court, and Priya Hingorani came to the bar in two very different times. They saw two very different Delhi High Courts, and the challenges both faced are very different. Of course, Ma'am Priya Hingorani had the illustrious legacy of Kapila Hingorani, who had her own struggles. That's why I think her mother's, in a sense, a photo picture of hers adorns the library of the Supreme Court, if I'm not wrong. And so this is the second generation for her as far as she is concerned. But Alia joined the bar at a different time, and we want to understand from her perspective to her what this means, what this order of the Supreme Court means. Over to you, Alia Waziri.
Thank you, Tarun. Thank you for having me here, for letting me listen to this illustrious panel. The first thing I want to say is that somebody who's in almost touching 30, I don't think this is an isolated, this order can be read in isolation. It touches a lot of things. Earlier in January, you and I did a panel where we were talking about how in 75 years we had 12 women senior advocates at the Supreme Court bar, and then one day we had 11 senior advocates. So I don't think anything in this order is isolated. As somebody who's just started practicing, like 5 years into the profession, I think there are two kinds of reform when we talk about gender. There's a latitudinal, and then there's a paradigmatic reform. It's extremely misogynistic. Even if you're a second generation lawyer, there's benign patriarchy, there is open patriarchy, and it does not matter what kind of last name you are. They are going to say it to you, and they will make it very, very clear just because the gender you belong to. But I think that there are a bunch of interrelated things that we are not looking at. The first thing is, the first thing that I just want to say is that even from people in my generation, can we just stop and talk about the fact that reservation is not a bad word? A welfare state's job is to act upon affirmative action, and in that case, that's what the Supreme Court is doing. So, if there is an unequal starting line, how do you expect women to have a seat at the decision making table? That's all we're asking. Priya ma'am ने शुरू में एक word use किया था, magnanimous. That I agree with every single thing she said except that word. I don't think we're asking for magnanimity from anybody. I don't think we're in a position to ask anybody to show us generosity, to give us so and so. I think there are plenty of, I'm not in a position to talk about the dynamics of who is in a position to elect or all of that. I'm only in a position where I can view the optics of it, and to me, it's a seat at the decision-making table. But I do agree with something that Ms. Sikri was talking about. Is this promise going to translate into equality? that is something that, I mean, it's a great promise, but is it actually going to be executed very well? That's something that we want to talk about.
Point well taken. Now we'll move to our round of closing comments. Very quickly, we'll start and go through each one. I remember we did a show some time back. Justice Indira Banerjee was Chief Justice in the Madras High Court, and they had 12 women judges, which was the highest ever figure for women judges in a High Court. But that's not been followed up. Of course, those numbers keep on coming up and down. Should we have more representation of women on the bench is something that also needs to be discussed, and that is, I mean, that will lead to a lot more reform, I feel. More women on the bench will change a lot. 12 is what a big number, and that's why we took it up. We will now go to the round of closing comments. We'll start with Ma'am Priya Hingorani. Over to you.
Thank you, Tarun. See, I have, before I come to my closing comment, two comments
You're breaking up.
on what has been said. First of all, it is, women. First of all, can
Your
you hear me
screen
now?
is frozen.
Can you hear me, Tarun? Yeah. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Your screen is frozen.
From my side, it doesn't look frozen. There's, the light's been coming in and going out. That's the problem today, for some reason.
Get Sunita Ojha in, and I'll come back to you in about one.
Yeah.
Advocate Sunita Ojha, over to you for your intervention.
So the one is, of course, I'm seeing this as a point where, we will have whether through bar, through the GBM or through the court order, we are looking at a situation where there will be, the more seats will open up for women to actually contest. So the other side now is it's like a supply side. So we have to now see that the women who are, and we, for the office bearers post, we definitely want the very, very senior women from the bar to come forward and take the opportunity. Now, you see, the association, it's a political, in the sense that, here the role requires, it's slightly different from being a partner in the firm or being a, here you have to have that ability to work with a team, take people along, listen to them. And this is not something that you are pushing yourself only in order to make more money or make more, that sort of a thing. So it's a social work in that sense for the bar. So I think women, as in senior, my appeal to the senior members of bar, women bar would be, please come forward, take this opportunity, and just show that, we have done so much and we can do much more. Like, just for the Priya Hingorani, ma'am, I want to say one thing. She has done in spite of all that has been there, systematic, everything. So she is a example. And if the situation is more conducive, it is more, the field is more level playing. I believe, I think somebody referred to about that, what does it mean? I think Ruchi was talking about the fact that why can't we have people do the campaign in the manner than in which we want. Yes, of course, and we want that to become the norm. So, in fact, recently, when in the hearing itself, the Supreme Court commented that why should lawyer be campaigning? I'm seriously, my judgments speak for what I do. I appear in the court. If you're a regular practitioner, you would see me at least 3 times a week. So why does one need to campaign if you are a practicing lawyer? So this whole cultural change has to happen. But this is a great beginning, and we are happy. Thank you.
Thank you for your closing comment. We'll go to Senior Advocate Priya Hingorani for her closing comment.
Yeah. Thank you, Tarun. Now, is this better now?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, a couple of things. First of all, let me tell you, it's not easy for a woman to contest elections in any bar association, in any court. It is, the campaigning is a different level altogether. The parties are a completely, the kind of parties and where they take place is something which, on principle, I mean, I have never done it, and I've always said so, it is not the right way to do it. If you're known in the bar for your work or for your service to the institution, that should be good enough for people to elect. Unfortunately, people who are regular practitioners they do not come in for elections. That's the other issue which we come across. And those who, in fact, who are regular practitioners also do not come to vote very often because they just are, in their own world. They're living in their own world. They will do their work, go away. They are not bothered. I think it's very important for people who are in regular practitioners who have some standing in the bar to give some time back to the institution. So that's very important. And a lot of women, particularly women, I find that they do not come for elections. The other thing which I have experienced, and I must very candidly say that you work very hard in any election. When I had decided to contest, as Tarun said, I had decided a year ago, and I had mentioned it to all my friends, mentioned it to everyone, did whatever I could to tell people what I had done in the past, in the last 30 years. But then, when the elections take place, and nobody says no to you, nobody says no. If out of the 2,000 people who are contesting, if people are candid enough to say that, well, this year we are committed to somebody, maybe next year, you do know where you stand. Out of the 2,000 people, nobody will say no to you. You're completely at the dark end, right? And then when elections happen, there are different considerations. But believe me, I say this to all the candidates who have lost or who haven't made it. Don't worry, it's only a year. You'll always come back if you're sincere about doing something good for the institution. Don't give up. Come again. Try and do better. Make more friends. Come back with a bang. So, and there are other aspects also where Tarun, people say that how many times are you going to contest? How many times are you want to lose? The people trying to dishearten your efforts. So I would say to anyone and everyone who wants to be in bar politics or who wants to do something for the institution, please do come back again and again if you're sincere about that. Don't give up and expect your friends to stand with you. I mean, that's what hurts most is when your friends don't stand with you, despite the fact that you have done whatever you could for them. So I think that's why I started by saying we all need to introspect. We in the associations, of course, go back to the courts. That's our last resort. And the courts, Justice Suryakant's order for the Supreme Court bar session was a pivotal change. It encouraged 33%, at least 1/3 women in the executive have come because of that order. This year, the bench is absolutely keen to bring about reforms, electoral reforms in the Supreme Court. But while we are now at the moment talking about High Court, I really think that we should also think about bringing about changes in the Bar Council of India as well as the state bar councils, because that's the body which actually governs us or disciplines. That's the statutory body where we must have at least 50% women. And on the second point, Tarun, very quickly, when you talked about representation in the courts, we are not with due respect to the courts, they are not walking the talk. We have so many good women in the bar, across the bar. Names are recommended for some reason or the other. They are not, recommended further. They are recommended by different high courts, but something or the other, there's some link missing. They don't get recommended. And I think that's something where we really need to come out. Women particularly have to come out and say that please think of women. They are better at times than the men, the people who are elevated, the men colleagues who are elevated. I find there's far better women, but they don't get their opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being, very candid with your comments. I think over 100 years ago, when women first started getting educated and going to school, there was a lot of opposition. The truth is, such kind of men even now exist in society who don't believe women should get. So, India straddles, 180-degree, two different worlds. Both kind of people live in this society, but the society has moved forward. The good thing is society has moved forward, and we are, in a sense, improving day by day. This order, if I'm not wrong, also has an implication on the district bar associations for representation. They also would have similar provisions made where women will have reservation. Is that happening? Is something I would like to know.
Right.
Yeah. No.
So I am sorry. Yes, please.
Yeah. Does it have in a sense, provision for district bar associations also to have this reservation?
No, not in this order. But I must say, see, the petition which was filed in the Supreme Court, there were two PILs filed. One talks about the larger in all the associations, district bar association, and in the line of Nari Shakti, it seeks 33% reservation. Another PIL which was filed by Fawzia Rahman, who is an advocate in the Delhi High Court, that talks about many more changes within the Delhi High Court Bar Association structure itself. For example, expanding it, making it more. Now, as far as the order which was passed in the Supreme Court the other day, it only deals with the Delhi High Court Bar Association. But what fell from the court, that we must also hear. And court said that we expect that this will be followed, replicated by all other district forums. So that was very loud and clear. The justice, the court spoke to the Bar Association and the Bar Council. All the senior members of bar were present, and they said we are hoping that this will, because once you do it, it will simultaneously it will have a purple. It will impact the district association, and we expect that they will come forward and do it on their own. So that is the expectation. Yes.
Point very well taken. We now continue to a round of closing comments. Ekta Sikri will join us.
Yes, I remember I was attending some conference where Justice Pratibha Singh rightly said that almost 50% in law school, almost 50% of the students are women, are young girls and females. By the time that comes to practice, the number dwindles, and by the time it goes further up, the number dwindles even more. So we really need a voice on the table. Women issues need to be discussed and need to be on the forefront. Why there are so many women-centric issues which are not being today discussed as mainstream or in the forefront is because of lack of representation. So we need divergent views and we need diverse views to be on the table, and we need a better legal, equitable legal ecosystem, and we need better role models for our younger members of the bar. So I'm really hopeful and to see some more women representatives in policy making decisions, because I think that's very vital. There are lots of women who are a part of the bar associations, but how many of them actually are holding posts, or how many of them are actually a part of the decision-making process? That's where we need to, like Madam Hingorani said, introspect, and whether it's come voluntarily or through court, it's a welcome step. And I hope to see more role models for the younger bar in the associations.
Thank you, Ekta, for your closing comment. We'll go to Advocate Ruchi Agnihotri for her closing comment.
So I feel it's a step in the right direction. I definitely feel it's needed. I don't for a minute feel that it's not something that should have been done. I also welcome the fact that the judiciary is thinking in the way that it is thinking and is out there trying to protect and promote women's interests and giving them, as Ekta said, a seat on the table. But as I said, it's a 360-degree effort. It requires a lot of mindset change. It requires a lot of will change. It also requires women to view themselves differently. We have to see ourselves in a different role. If we have to feel firstly truly equal, then the enablement will actually take us that much higher and actually be more meaningful for us. So I think it's very important for us to view ourselves a lot more differently rather than trying to justify. I don't see any man actually justifying ambition, for example, but I see women making excuses for being ambitious or justifying or always trying to show how they are balancing it all. Yes, wonderful, but that's really, I just feel it's a mindset issue. Also, I don't, it's not men versus women as such. It's a mindset thing. It's a societal thing. It's gender agnostic. There are women who are not ready to empower or enable themselves. And there will be women who are actually clipping a lot of women's wings in different settings. If a woman is not, just as Ekta mentioned, the numbers dwindle. Why do they dwindle? They dwindle because they don't get that kind of support. They don't get that kind of enablement. They become wives, they become mothers, they become all sorts of things, and they don't get those kind of enablements that they should get. Largely, women are not giving them those enablements because they have people at home, let's say, who can enable them if they so want. Justice Pratibha Singh, to take her, she took Rose so well because she had I was her junior when I joined the profession. She rose so well because she had a fantastic support structure, and that fantastic support structure just enabled her, exactly as most men have. They have a fantastic support structure that allows them to pursue their professional ambitions. So yes, enablement is very important. Confidence is also very important. And perseverance, as Priya ma'am mentioned, is also very important. And everything is very important. But at the same time, it has to be backed by a mindset change. We have to see ourselves as truly equal, and we have to expect that everything is a 50% need down, so then you don't need to lose out on anything. If you don't lose out on anything, and if you have 50% participation in your domestic setting, then you are just, you have the wings. Everyone has the capability. People have potential.
Point
Wings
very well
are what
taken.
we need.
Point very well taken. I think result was a crash at the court. The Supreme Court has a crash now. Had women be part of the Supreme Court Bar Association in greater numbers, maybe the crash would have come 15, 20, 30 years ago. It would have enabled many women to practice. These are the differences that are made when women are part of the association. One final comment we'll take from advocate.
I'll just interrupt. I mean, to add to what Ruchi said, and very rightly put by her, that there has to be a change of mindset. So actually, we don't need reservation. We need better gender balance. I mean, we should not look at it like we need any special reservation, but we definitely need a change of mindset and a better gender balance.
Point well taken, Ekta. I'll go to advocate Alia Waziri for her closing comment.
Thanks, Tarun. Tarun, I just had two things to say. One, if I had somebody as a young lawyer, if I had someone like Priya ma'am as the president of the bar, I would, women my age would be going to her with a whole gamut of issues that we are experiencing as very young practitioners, and the issues that are not talked about, that we only talk to Sunita ma'am or Priya ma'am when we meet them one-on-one. But things that need to be taken up infrastructurally, things that need to be taken up systematically, things that need systemic reform. Number one. Number two, I think that there is affirmative action is not a bad word. It does not, reservation does not make women the weaker sex. Yes, gender balance is needed, but try going to Saket or Karkarduma, and I hate to be the one to be making the most cliched statement, but I mean, it won't happen to you, but try using the washroom there. I did that and it was the most disgusting thing. And I really hate to be saying this on national television, but that is something that's there. You can't take it away from it. And as long as there is a trickle-down effect, which is something that Sunita ma'am was saying, the court noted in that order, if that happens, that's fantastic. If it translates into that, that's fantastic. But right now, it seems like a step in the right direction.
Thank you for your closing comment, and I appreciate that each one of you, Senior Advocate Priya Angarani, Advocate Sunita Ojha, Advocate Ekta Sikri, Advocate Ruchi Agnihotri, and Advocate Alia Waziri, all of you came, spoke on an order by Justice Suryakant, Justice Ujjwal Bhuyan, and Justice Deepankar Datta. We are thanking the court for taking us in the right direction. These orders by the court, in a sense, show that there is hope and the courts will stand by you on important matters. In a sense, these kind of orders need to be celebrated, and that is what we are doing, and looking forward to a lot more in future. I thank each one of you who is part of this show and the viewers who were watching this. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.